Welcome learners. I am Dr. Ambuda from School of Management, Shastra University. I welcome to the session Materials Handling. Materials handling is said to be one of the important functions in materials management. Raw materials form a critical part of manufacturing as well as a service organization. In any organization, a considerable amount of materials handling is done in one form or the other. This movement is either done manually or through an automated process. Throughout the material, handling processes significant safety, health, and challenges are presented to the material workers as well as to the management. Materials handling manually is of prime concern for health and safety of the professionals, and they must determine the practical ways of reducing the health risk to the workers. Manual material handling ranges from movement of material, work in progress, finished goods, rejected materials, scraps, packing materials, etc. These materials are of different shape and sizes as well as different weights. Material handling is a systematic and scientific method of moving, packing, storing of materials in appropriate and suitable location. Keynes defines material handling embraces the basic operations in connection with the movement of bulk, packaged and individual products in a semi-solid or solid state by means of gravity, manually or power actuated equipments, and within the limits of individual procuring, fabricating, processing or service establishment. So Keynes says that material handling is said to be one of the basic operations in materials management, and it involves in the movement of bulk materials or packing materials or individual products, and it may be in a semi-solid state or a solid state, and this will be moved either manually or power actuated equipment, and it should be within the limits of the individuals who are really engaged in producing, fabricating, processing or involving in some services. Material handling does not add any value to the product but adds to the cost of the product. Hence it will cost the customer more. So material handling is said to be a service function, and it is not an ingredient to the main product. So it adds the service cost to the products. It increases the cost of the product. Therefore, material handling should be kept to the minimum possible extent. Material handling in Indian industries accounts for nearly 40% of the cost of production. Of the total time spent for the manufacturing a product, 20% of the time is utilized for actual processing on them, while remaining 80% of the time is spent in moving from one place to the another or waiting for processing. Poor material handling may result in delays leading to the idling of the equipments. Once again, idling of the equipments will cost more and will not earn anything. Material handling can also be defined as the function leading to the preparation, placing and positioning of materials to facilitate their movement or storage. Material handling is an art and science involving the movement, handling and storing of materials during the different stages of manufacturing. Thus the function includes every consideration of the product except the actual processing operation. In many cases, the handling is also included as an integral part of the process. Through scientific handling, considerable reduction in the cost as well as in the production cycle time can also be achieved. The objectives of material handling includes the following. The main objective is to minimize the cost of material handling. It also aims at minimizing the delays and interruptions by making available the materials at the point of use, at the right quantity and at the right time. It aims to increase the productive capacity of the production facilities by effective utilization of the capacity and enhancing the productivity. The safety in material handling through the improvement in the working condition is also the other objective of the material handling. All the material handling equipment should be utilized to the maximum extent to have the fullest utilization of those capacities. Then the prevention of damages to the materials is also of prime importance. Then the lower investment in the process inventory is also yet another objective of the materials handling. So the objectives of material handling can be put in a nutshell that it has to determine the appropriate distance to be covered between the departments. It has to facilitate the reduction in the damages to the materials and to improve the quality of the materials. Then reducing the overall manufacturing time by designing the efficient material movements. Then improve the material flow control. The creation and encouragement of safe and hazard-free working condition is also the major aim of a material handling methods. Then the productivity and the efficiency will be achieved at end by having the better utilization of the time and also the equipments. It is critical for manufacturing organizations to identify the importance of the material handling as it plays as a critical step in promoting the job improvements. Manual material handling significantly increases the health hazard for the workers. But in the current competitive and globalized environment, it is important to control the cost and reduce the time in material handling. So an efficient material handling processes will definitely depend upon the scientific way of handling the materials. The scientific way of handling the materials involves various material handling equipments, whether it is semi-automated or automated. This process will promote designing a proper facility layout, then the development of the method which simplifies the work process, then it increases the overall production activity and it reduces the total cost of production. Now we shall see the principles of materials handling. First comes the planning principle. All the material handling activities must be planned in advance. It establishes a plan which includes the basic requirements, desirable alternatives and planning for the contingencies. The basic requirements means the normal requirements of the all production departments, and if any alternative materials are available in case of scarcities or shortages, and those alternates should also be planned, and the contingency purchases should also be planned. Next comes the systems principle. Plan a system integrating as many handling activities as possible and coordinating the full scope of operations. What are the basic operations? Receiving, storing, producing, inspecting, packing, warehousing, supplying and transporting. All these systems should be integrated and all these systems must be coordinated, and a system should be followed. System means the basic procedure to be followed in all the functions. So it integrates all these activities, which is said to be cost effective in this integrated system design. Next comes the space utilization principle. The maximum utilization of the space should be made in the stores. Effective utilization should be encouraged in the stores. So the bins should be arranged in such a way that maximum number of materials can be stored and it can be easily taken back. So that is space utilization principles. We can have a vertical way of storing or a horizontal way of storing depending upon the space available in the organization. Unit load principle. It increases the quantity, the size and weight of the load to be handled. So the product should be handled in the unit loads as large as possible. So you have to decide about the unit load, and the unit load should be taken as a base for handling the materials. Next is the gravity principle. Utilizing the gravity to move the materials wherever practicable is prime importance. The organization should encourage the use of gravity principle in the movement of the goods. Next is the material flow principle. This material flow principle can also be had along with the system flow principle. The operation should be planned in a sequence and equipment should be arranged in that sequence to optimize the material flow. So the system should also be properly arranged and the integration of the information flow and also the physical material flow should be synchronized. So the materials and the system should go hand in hand to have the maximum effectiveness of this material handling. Next is the simplification principle. This principle will reduce the combination or it eliminates the unnecessary movements and bar the equipment. So the maximum possible extent, the unit loads must be combined together and the flow should be simplified. So the method should be simplified and the processes which are engaged in the unnecessary movements must be avoided. So the organization should always encourage the simplification of the movement of the materials in the organization. Next is the safety principle. This principle deals with the safe handling of the methods and the equipment. The provision for safe handling equipments according to the rules and regulations, statutory rules and regulations should be encouraged. So fencing should be made for the mobile machines and the pedestrian walk should be restricted in those places, and then the gravity principle and this principle works in combination. That is, when we are using the gravity force, the safety should be ensured. So safety principle and gravity principle must go hand in hand. Next is the mechanization principle. In this case of material handling, the material to be handled should be assorted according to the types or according to the size, and proper method should be standardized, and the material handling equipment should also be standardized, and the cost can be reduced when the standardization of the materials and also the handling equipments are combined together. An organization should encourage the standardization of the handling equipments and also the materials. Only when these two are combined together and properly matched, then the cost can be reduced. Next comes the mechanization principle. Using of mechanical equipments or automated handling equipment will definitely have a scientific way of handling the materials and the cost can be reduced. The efficiency in handling the materials can be encouraged and it can be increased only if the handling process is said to be mechanized. Next comes the flexibility principle. The methods of the equipments that are used for different tasks and different applications must be flexible enough. That is, the methods should be easily changed for the different types of the environment or different types of your situations. So according to the conditions prevailing in the organization, the methods and the equipments, the handling methods and the equipments should be easy to change. So the flexibility should be there wherever possible in the organization. Next is equipment selection principle. Considering the different standardization of the materials, the processes of handling the materials, the processes of transporting the materials, then all these items, that is the materials are standardized, the process is standardized and the transportation is standardized, the methods are standardized. Depending upon the standardization of all these factors, the equipments must be selected. Which equipment is said to be very comfortable one and which is said to be the exact fitting one for the organization. The next is the deadweight principle. Reducing the ratio of deadweight to pay the load in the mobile equipment is essential. So the deadweights must be reduced to have the efficiency in transporting the materials. Next is the motion principle. The material handling equipments must be designed in such a way the materials are to be transported with a minimum of the movements. Next is the idle time principle. The unproductive time, namely the idle time of both the equipments and the manpower should be reduced. So the method in which it has to be transported, the type and the size of the material equipment should be planned in such a way that the idle time or the unproductive time of both the equipments and the labor should be minimized. Next is the maintenance principle. Planning for the preventive maintenance or scheduled repair of all the material handling equipment should be made. Preventive maintenance is a maintenance which is made before any breakdown happens. Breakdown maintenance is a maintenance only when the breakdown has happened. But this preventive maintenance is said to be the maintenance before the equipment breaks down. As we usually say, prevention is better than cure. So it is a periodical repair and maintenance. It is said to be the scheduled repairs and maintenance to make all the equipments in good working conditions. And this will increase the efficiency of the equipments. So an organization should encourage a scheduled plan for the preventive maintenance and repairs. Next comes the obsolescence principle. The replacing of obsolete handling equipments is more essential because when we have any automated handling equipment or any advanced technology is introduced in handling equipment, an organization should make use of it to have the effectiveness. Suppose if the material equipment becomes obsolete one, then to improve the operation, it must try to replace the old equipment. So the replacement policy, the replacement of the equipment is to be made, is to be properly planned to enjoy the proper economic advantage. Next is the control principle. Using of this material handling equipment must definitely result in the improvement in the control of the production, the inventory and also the other handling costs. Performance principle. This principle will determine the efficiency in handling the performance in terms of the cost per unit handled, which is said to be of primary criterion. Now we shall see the other principles also, namely ergonomic principle. This ergonomic principle will involve the human capabilities and the limitations by the design, effective handling equipments. So we are going to match the human resources with the mechanical resources. So ergonomic principle will definitely plan the combination of the human labor and also the material handling equipments. Next is the energy principle. It considers the consumption of the energy during the material handling. What is the level of energy that has been consumed during the handling of materials and the cost of energy consumed during the transit. Ecology principle. It encourages the minimum impact over the environment during the material handling. So material handling equipment should not damage or it should not hamper the natural environment. Next is said to be the computerization principle. It encourages the computerization of material handling and other storage systems so that the handling of the materials is said to be more accurate and also simple to operate. Layout principle. This layout principle will have a sequence in the operations of all the systems available. So the layout of the material handling equipment should also be planned in such a way that it reduces the cost. Last but not the least, the orientation principle must be followed. The orientation principle normally encourages the study of all available system relationships before moving towards the preliminary planning of material equipments. This will include the study of existing methods, the existing problems faced, and what are the benefits in the introduction of the new material handling. So we have the principles of material handling as planning principle, that is all the handling activities must be planned. The systems principle, all these systems should be properly integrated. Space utilization, the available space must be utilized properly. The material handling equipment should take into account the unit loads also. Gravity principle will say about the gravity utilization to move the materials wherever possible. Then the material flow principle should also plan the sequence of the operations and the flow of the equipment, equipments in the production path to optimize the flow of materials. The simplification principle will determine the methods in which the unnecessary movement of the materials can be avoided, and again unnecessary movement of the equipment should also be avoided. Safety principle must go in hand with the gravity principle. It must have the safety methods of handling the equipment. Mechanization principle deals with the mechanical methods or the automated methods of the material handling equipment. Standardization is both the materials and also the material equipments should be standardized. The methods, the types and the sizes of the material equipment should be standardized. And any method that has been used or any equipment that has been used in the production must be able to have a flexibility. The change in the method should be made. That is the flexibility principle. Equipment selection is based on the type of material, the movement of the material, the methods to be used. The equipment should be properly selected. That is the equipment selection principle. Dead weight principle is reducing the ratio of their dead weight to pay the load on the mobile equipments. Then the motion principle is the motion, the movements of the equipments for during the transit should be kept minimum. Idle time of the equipments and also the manpower should be reduced. That is called as the idle time principle. Proper maintenance, the preventive maintenance should be made in case of preventive maintenance principle. Obsolescence principle is any obsolete methods and the obsolete equipment is present in the organization should be properly disposed of, and proper technology, the advanced technology should be implemented in the organization. The capacity principle is any material equipment should be utilized in a fullest capacity. Then the control principle is production control, inventory control and other handling costs should be properly controlled here. The performance principle is the efficiency in handling the performance in terms of cost per unit should also be calculated. Then we will have the computerization principle. Everything should be computerized. In the storage systems, the material handling system should be computerized. The layout of the sequence of the operation should be planned. That is your layout principle. Then we have the cost benefit analysis of all the methods. That is called as the cost principle. Last, then we have the energy principle. The consumption of the energy and the cost of the energy consumption should be taken into consideration. The ecology principle, the natural environment should not be affected. The economic principle is combination of human and the labor, but not the least. We will have the orientation principle. Whatever methods we are going to follow, it must be properly planned, and the existing methods and the existing shortages or the existing challenges should be understood, and we have to study about the new methods in implementing the material handling equipment, and also we have to select the equipment in a proper way to maximize the productivity and also to decrease the material handling cost. Based on the brief introduction about the various principles of material handling, we shall now discuss about 10 major principles of material handling in detail. First one is the planning principle. All material handling should be the result of a deliberate plan where the needs, performance, objectives and the function specification of the proposed methods are completely defined at the outset. A plan is a prescribed course of action that is defined in advance of implementation. In the simplest form, the material handling plan defines the material and moves together to define the method. So the material and the moves together will define the methods. The material is said to be what is to be carried out. Moves will decide about when to carry out and where to carry out. The method will say how to carry out and who has to carry out. So we have what to carry, when to carry, where to carry, who has to carry and how to carry. This is the 4 W's and 1 H. So a plan is a prescribed course of action that is to be defined in advance of the implementation of the methods. So it defines the material and the moves, and it defines the method also. The plan should be developed in consultation between the planners and all who will use and benefit from the equipment to be employed. So the plan should also be developed in consideration of the methods, the material and the moves. Success in planning large-scale material handling projects generally requires a team approach involving the suppliers, consultants when appropriate, and the end-user specialists from the management, engineering, computer and information systems, finance and the operations. The material handling plan should reflect the strategic objectives of the organization as well as the more immediate needs. The plan should document existing methods and problems, physical and economic constraints, and future requirements and goals. The plan should also promote concurrent engineering of a product, process design, process layout, and material handling methods, as opposed to an independent and a sequential design practices. So the planning principle will take into consideration a deliberate plan of a material handling system. The next comes the standardization principle. Material handling methods, equipment, controls and software should be standardized within the limits of achieving the overall performance objectives and without sacrificing the needed flexibility, modularity and throughput anticipation of changing future requirements. Standardization means less variety, that is the reduction in the variety, and customization in the methods and equipment employed. The planner should select the methods and equipment that can perform a variety of tasks under a variety of operating conditions. Standardization applies to the sizes of the containers and other load-forming components as well as operating procedures and equipment. Standardization, flexibility and modularity must not be incompatible. So standardization means the reduction in the variety and the customization in the methods and equipments that are to be employed in handling the materials. The third comes the work principle. Material handling should be minimized without sacrificing the productivity or the level of service required of the operation. The measure of work in the material handling flow, that is the volume or the weight or the count per unit of the time, must be multiplied by the distance moved. So the flow of materials into the distance moved will say about the work done by the equipment. Simplifying the process by reducing, combining, shortening or eliminating unnecessary moves will reduce the work. So the work reduction can be done through the reduction of the unnecessary movements or elimination of the unnecessary movements, or it cannot be eliminated fully, it should be shortened also. Considering each pickup and setting down or placing the materials in and out of the storage as distinct moves and components of the distance move. So this work principle will also take into consideration the pickup and the set down and the placing of materials in and out of the storage, and it should be, these moves must be taken as different moves and the different components of the distances carried. Process methods, operation sequences and process layouts should also be prepared that support the work minimization objective. Wherever possible, gravity should be used to move the materials or to assist in their movement, while respecting the consideration of safety and the potential for product damage. The shortest distance between 2 points is said to be the straight line of the movement. So the work principle results in the multiplication of the work material flow and also the distance to be moved. Next comes the ergonomic principle. Human capabilities and limitations must be recognized and respected in the design of material handling tasks and equipments to ensure safety and effective operations. Ergonomics is a science that seeks to adopt work or working conditions to suit the ability of the worker. So the capacity of the worker must be properly matched with the work that has been given to them regarding the handling of materials. Equipment should be selected and it should eliminate repetitive manual labor which will effectively interact with the human operators and the users. This principle embraces both physical and mental tasks. The material handling workplace and equipment employed to assist them that one must be designed so that they are safe for the people. So the safety should be taken as a prime fact to be considered under this principle. Next is the unit load principle. Unit loads shall be appropriately sized and configured in such a way that it achieves the material flow and the inventory objectives at each stage in the supply chain. A unit load is one that can be stored or moved as a single entity at one point of time, such as a pallet or a container, regardless of the number of individual items that make up the load. Less effort and work is required to collect and move many individual items as a single load than to move many items one at a time. Load size and compositions may change as the material and the product moves through the stages of manufacturing and resulting distribution channels. Large unit loads are common both pre and post manufacturing in the form of raw materials and finished goods. During manufacturing, smaller unit loads, including as few as one item, yield less in-process inventory and shorter item throughput times. Smaller unit loads are consistent with manufacturing strategies that embrace operating objectives such as flexibility, continuous flow and just-in-time delivery. Unit loads composed of a mix of different items are consistent with just-in-time or the customized supply strategies or both, so long as items selectivity is not compromised. So unit load principle takes into account the number of items to be transported at a single point of time. Next is the space utilization principle. This principle insists on the effective and efficient usage of the available space in an organization. Space in material handling is three-dimensional and therefore counted as a cubic space. In work areas, the clutter and unorganized spaces and block aisles should be eliminated. In storage areas, the objective of maximizing the storage density must be balanced against accessibility and selectivity. While transporting the loads within the facility, the use of overhead space should be considered as an option. The next one is the system principle. Material movement and storage activities should be fully integrated to form a coordinated operational system which spans receiving, instruction, storage, production, assembly, packaging, utilizing, order selection, shipping, transportation and handling of the debtors. A system is a collection of interacting the interdependent entities that form a unified whole. Systems integration should encompass the entire supply chain, including the reverse logistics. It should include the suppliers, manufacturers, distributors and customers. Inventory levels should be minimized at all stages of production and distribution while respecting the considerations of process variability and also the customer service. Information flow and physical material flow should be integrated and treated as concurrent activities. Methods should be provided for easily identifying the materials and products, for determining their location and status within the facilities and within the supply chain and for controlling their movement. Customer requirements and regarding the quantity, quality and on-time delivery should be met without exception. Consistency and predictability regarding quantity, quality and on-time delivery should be met without exception. So the system principle says that the material movement and the storage facilities should be fully integrated and coordinated. Automation principle. Material handling operations should be mechanized or automated wherever feasible to improve the operational efficiency, increase the responsiveness and improve the consistency and predictability. Pre-existing processes and methods should be simplified or re-engineered before any efforts at installing the mechanized or automated systems. Computerized material handling systems should be considered where appropriate for effective integration of material flow and information management. Treat all the interface issues as a critical one to the success to the automation, including equipment to equipment, equipment to load, equipment to operator and control communications. All items expected to be handled automatically must have features that accommodate the mechanized and automated handling. So this automation principle tells about the mechanization and automation wherever possible and wherever it is necessary to improve the efficiency and consistency in transporting. Next is the environmental principle. Environmental impact and energy consumption should be considered as a criteria when designing or selecting alternative equipment and material handling systems. Environmental consciousness stems from a desire not to waste the natural resources and to predict and eliminate the possible negative effects of our daily effects on the environment. So whenever our daily actions affects the environment, we have to reduce those negative effects. The containers, the pallets and other products used to form and protect the unit loads should be designed for reliability where possible as appropriate. The biodegradability should also be considered. Systems design should accommodate the handling of the spent tonnage, empty containers and other byproducts of material handling. Materials specified as hazardous have special needs with regard to the spill protection, combustibility and other risks. So the environmental principle takes into consideration the elimination of the negative effects on the environment and not to waste the natural resources. The last comes the life cycle cost principle. The thorough economic analysis should account for the entire life cycle of all material handling equipment and resulting systems. Life cycle costs include all cash flows that occur between the time the first rupee is spent to plan or procure a new piece of equipment or put in place a new method until that method and the equipment is totally replaced. Life cycle cost includes the capital investment, the installation of the equipment, the setting up cost, the training cost for the equipment programming, the system testing and acceptance and operating the equipment, maintaining it, the repair service, reuse value and the ultimate disposal. So the cost of the life cycle starts from the purchase till the disposal of asset. So the investment made, the installation cost, setting up cost, training cost, then the acceptance cost, operating cost, maintenance cost, repair cost, then the reusage value and the disposal cost. A plan for preventive and predictive maintenance should be prepared for the equipment, and the estimated cost of maintenance and spare cost should also be included in the economic analysis. A long-range plan for the replacement of the equipment when it becomes obsolete should also be prepared. Although measurable cost is a primary factor, it is certainly not only the factor in selecting among the alternatives. Other factors of a strategic nature to the organization and which forms the basis for the competition in the marketplace should be considered and quantified wherever possible. So the life cycle cost principle will account for the entire life cycle of all material equipments and other resulting systems. So this material handling equipments principle will consist of the major 10 principles, namely planning principle, standardization principle, work principle, economic principle, unit flow principle, space utilization principle, system principle, automation principle, environmental principle, life cycle cost principle. Based on the principles of material handling, then the equipment should be properly selected and the method of transporting the materials should be decided.